to A Well-Designed Business. My name is LuAnn, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company WindowWorks from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. It's Flashback Friday. This is when I go into the past shows and I choose ones that I know deserve a listen again. Or if you are a newer listener, you may not have heard it and you need to. Today's episode, I chose number 148 with Michelle Wiebe of Studio M. Studio M is a luxury residential new construction firm located in Tampa, Florida. And I have to say, over the years, I've interviewed many people on the subject of new residential constructions, but my conversation with Michelle remains as one of the most in-depth conversations on the topic. And I chose this episode because I know that there are many who, whether you're seasoned or new, dream of breaking into this area. Michelle has plenty of advice, and I got to tell you, she's a heck of a smart lady. On a personal note, since we recorded this podcast, I've had the pleasure of spending quality time with Michelle on two separate occasions. Interestingly, both times were because of my friend Veronica Miller Eagleson, who is the brilliant genius businesswoman behind the Design Hounds. And I have to say, I think Design Hounds warrants a shout out here. Not that Veronica and I haven't said to each other a dozen times we have to get her on the show, but let me just tell you a little bit about them. Design Hounds is the leading network of design micro-influencers, and their mission is to help the designer, content creator, to leverage their own industry connections and insights to produce consistent content that informs both design professionals and savvy design consumers. Right? Veronica and her team facilitate these industry connections and create meaningful experiences that both the brand and her mighty, loyal team of design micro-influencers always benefit from. So here's the thing. In May of 2019, Veronica invited me to speak on the Napa trip that she organized and was sponsored by Signature Kitchen Suites. On that amazing trip, I was fortunate to be seated next to Michelle at lunch. When we spoke on this podcast, I learned what a fantastic, smart lady she was. But at that lunch, I learned what a kind and caring lady she is as well. Open, warm, incredibly humble, given especially what she has created. And I learned that she's an all-around good human. And then recently, in February 2022, again on a Design Hound trip, Veronica was whisking all of her Design Hounds to a 4-day wellness retreat in Clearwater, Florida. And she asked me to speak, this time focusing more on business owners, designers as a whole person, and not just a straight up CEO. Veronica arranged for buses to take all of us from the beautiful hotel on the beach that she had us in to Michelle's studio in Tampa. And OMG, is her studio something else. I mean, legitimately. Several thousand square feet of beauty, function, luxury, and inspiration. She and her husband Tom, along with their team, rolled out a red carpet for all of us like no other. A delicious lunch, a tour of the studio, and the warmest welcome you can imagine. So again, I got to see another side of this dynamite lady. The leader of an extraordinarily successful design firm, a team who respects and admires her, her husband who realized her abilities and skills and watched what she was building and joined her to bring his expertise into the business. And still, all of this and the most noticeable thing about Michelle is still her kindness and her humbleness. So please listen, learn, enjoy, and smile as you think about how much she has accomplished in the years since this recording. And do yourself a favor. For inspiration, check out her website, her Instagram, see her work, her studio, and know if your dream is to take a similar path, it is possible with strategy, talent, and desire. Okay? I'll put links to both the Design Hounds and Michelle's website in the show notes. And before I turn this over to the show that we originally aired, I want to make a special thanks to our sponsor, Cravat. Have you opened your trade account yet? Go to Cravat.com and do that today. The Cravat family of brands includes Curated Cravat, Lee Jofa, Dongia, Brunswick and Fee, Cravat Contract, GP&J Baker, and of course the Cravat brand itself, which once you open your account, you can use the code AWDB10 for 10% off any one Cravat brand fabric, wallpaper, or trim. No minimums, tons of quick ship furniture. By the way, yes, I said that. You can get some lines as little as 12 to 15 weeks, not 26, not 30, not 40, not 52. For real. Check them out today at Cravat.com. All right, let's meet Michelle. Hi, welcome to another episode of A Well-Designed Business. On the show today, I have Michelle Wiebe. Michelle is the principal of Studio M in Tampa, Florida. And the specialty of Michelle's firm is luxury residential new construction. And while we have talked to quite a few designers who are in this field, I haven't really picked their brain about it as much as I did with Michelle today. So I think you're going to like it. But let me tell you a little bit more about her. Her firm, in addition to luxury residential new construction, that's a mouthful, they also do multifamily condominiums, corporate headquarters, medical offices, and small-scale hospitality spaces. And the thing is, Michelle is quite a busy lady because in addition to all of this, she also serves on the board of interior design for Florida State University, her alma mater, and she also serves on the High Point Market Authority Board. She also goes all around the country speaking on design and social media, and she is the editor of Impression, the Studio M design blog. Hi, Michelle. Thanks so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
Well, LuAnn, I am thrilled to be here. I'm excited to speak with you.
Thank you. So, Michelle, I'm just going to share with everybody that I think it's a pretty funny coincidence what I found in my research with you. Certainly, my longtime podcast listeners know by now that I generally will tackle a potential guest and research them through many different avenues. And it's interesting because as I do my research on a particular guest, I start to write down questions that I come across from the first thing I do on your homepage, on your about page, and I just start writing anything that comes to mind that I think, I want to know the other side of that. I want to know about that. And it's funny because for you, right in your about you, it talked about how you specialize in luxury new construction design. And of course, I've spoken with designers about that before that have platforms like that. But I thought as I read that, I thought, maybe I'll ask Michelle if she minds if we really pick that apart and if she minds if I really say, how do you get into that? And then the funny thing is, Michelle, I'm like 10 minutes, 15 minutes later, now I'm on the High Point Market website looking for information on you because as I said in the introduction, you're on the board of directors for High Point Market. And I see that here we have this year in 2017 on April 22nd at 3 p.m. at High Point Market, you're giving a presentation on Set Yourself Apart from the Crowd, Essential Secrets for Designing New Construction Luxury Residences. And I thought, well, there you go.
There you have it.
There it is. So I am looking forward to picking this apart a little bit, and especially for any designer that's listening that is not going to have the great advantage of being able to go to High Point this year. Maybe we get a little cheat sheet on what your presentation is about. So first, a couple of things that occur to me on the topic, and of course, you're going to enlighten us, I'm sure of it. But the first couple of things that occur to me is, I know, Michelle, on the show we've talked about market to the client that you want. So we use often the example of kitchens, and we say to interior designers, if you want to do kitchen design because you love that and you're passionate about, then pull off of your website pictures of the children's nurseries that you've designed in XYZ. Okay, so that's fairly clear cut. But if somebody is striving and wants to create a name for themselves and specialize their design firm in luxury new construction, it's not like you could just, you got to do one to get there, right? So talk to us about that. Like, I want to be somewhere and how do I get there?
Well, you're right. It is kind of the chicken and the egg. You typically need some type of good experience to be hired for other jobs, and somewhere along the way, my firm actually, we're in our 26th year right now, and probably really got into specializing in luxury residential new construction. Gosh, it's probably been about 15 years ago. Got a couple opportunities and did well on them, and really it's just learning the nuts and bolts of construction, working with the builders and general contractors, working with the architects. Our firm, one of the things that set us apart, I feel, is our level of AutoCAD drawings and technical drawings for the project. So again, over time, we've cultivated that and, grown in our construction knowledge, grown in whether it's structural or electrical or what have you, and then just being able to design, make selections, and then document it in our CAD drawings. And, it's funny in this day of the internet and Google, and, you're always trying to have the best SEO for your website. But, honestly, we still get our best projects, either, referrals from other happy clients or architects or builders. But, really, we've just tried to become a really good team member to the builders and architects that we work with. And it seems to have worked. And, even in hiring, we're trying to bring in other interior designers that also have that new construction background. You have to know your way around a job site, and you need to know what's going on at an electrical rough-in or plumbing rough-in, and, how that relates ultimately to the final design. So,
okay. So what I'm hearing then is that it sounds like all of interior design is skilled and highly skilled. There's no question. But it sounds like this is almost, like skilled on steroids. Like you really have to have more than just a working knowledge of what goes into constructing a home. And you're saying in order to be taken seriously by the other trades, the architects and the GCs and the builders and so forth on the project, but also to be able to market yourself as a luxury high-end new build firm, you have to bring some experience and expertise to the table.
We do. I mean, you can't fake it, really. You have to be able to have intelligent conversations and make, thousands and thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, if not $1,000,000 decisions. And, there is some liability and responsibility tied with that. But, we enjoy it, though. We really do. I mean, all of our designers love to be on construction sites. We, again, understand the verbiage and drawings. Again, if we're getting a set of drawings from an electrical engineer, we're able to understand them. We're able to review and redline them as needed and get them back to them. And then ultimately just figure out how it's going to look in the home when it's completed. So,
okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. So what I'm thinking and I'm visualizing is there's two different types of your colleagues that could be listening to this conversation right now. One could be a new interior designer, possibly in his or her first position or coming out of college, thinking this is the direction, this is the part of the field that they'd like to pursue. And then the other designer could be somebody that maybe, like you at one point, we're 10 years into your design career and wants to transition over to this field. So I think I'm going to understand very quickly and easily for the first designer, the new designer, my guess is what occurs to me is they should probably look for a position in a firm like yours that's established and that is doing projects like this, that they can learn from the other senior designers and the principal like yourself how to be involved on a project of this level. So that seems like pretty obvious, right?
It is, and even more so. Again, I serve on the board at Florida State on the Interior Design Advisory Board, and I really recommend to those students, you can go really after graduation into commercial design or residential design. And if you think, it's probably good to take a job in which one you think you're leaning towards. But commercial is different from residential in a lot of aspects. And, we get very intimately involved with the clients. I mean, you find out a lot about their family and how they function and their lifestyle and their hobbies. And, we usually get to know our clients very, very well. We typically work with them anywhere, on average, it's 2 to 3 years. We've had some of our projects even be 4-year projects. So you get to know the clients really well. But so for that student or that person coming right out of design school, I would really encourage them to try to get hired on with a firm in the direction that you think you want to go. So if it's luxury residential, new construction, then try to get on with a firm that's doing that. Or, you could even apply to a builder that has like in-house interior design.
That's a good way, right? Because then you really learn it from the building construction side. You're having those conversations every day with the people who are going to talk to you in construction language. That's pretty interesting. I like that. I like that suggestion.
It is, because we're not just dealing with fabrics or there are just a lot of. I mean, I always feel it's kind of like you're kind of like the conductor of a symphony. Like we have to know a lot about enough. Like we don't know everything about electricity or everything about even appliances, because there's always new ones coming out, but we know enough about everything to bring it all together into this perfect, harmonious, completed interior.
Right.
So you just have to know a lot about everything, and even like in your field, like window treatments and the motorization, and there's just so many things.
I know.
So we have to know enough to get it done, and then certainly sometimes there's consultants or people that we work with to even get it up to the next level or whatever. But there are a lot of things, and to your question about, so if it's a student or if it's someone that's been in the field for 10 years, our firm has really worked on probably the past 5 to 8 years, really profiling who our ideal client is. And it might be the type of house they're building, the square footage, certain architects or builders they're working with. It might be, their income range, but we really only then try to take the jobs that fit that ideal client profile. So even for someone trying to get into the field, I would say whatever you can do to start securing that first job, and then really trying to tailor which clients you're going to take. You have to start passing on some of the ones that aren't your ultimate, where you're trying to take this. So
yes, we talk about that a lot also on the show, how exactly as you said, present to the world the client that you want, because then that client can find you and identify you. And you have to be willing to say no to the one and the projects that, aren't really what are fulfilling you at this point any longer, and not really the direction of your firm. But what I would love to explore a little bit is with that, say, whatever it is, I don't care if it's 5 years or 10 years or 15 or 20 years. It's the designer who is an accomplished designer at whatever, work level that they're doing in their own right. So they're not coming to work and worried anymore. They're not coming to work and afraid that they can't put a floor plan together. They have it together, but they'd like to work and reach for this market. And I understand you almost need that first project in order so that you can highlight it. And of course, that might be just a stroke of luck, a customer that or client that you have done 2 or 3 little projects in their home prior to maybe they've hit the lottery and they're going to, build a new house, and they love you and know you and trust you. And so they're going to let you oversee or hire you to oversee their new build. Okay. And maybe it's a 3,000 square foot home instead of a 20,000, but it's still an oversee and an execution of a full-on project. But my question is because what I heard in your first conversation there is the many layers of other skill sets that are in addition to simply the design layer. So if a designer, so let's just say that exact example, a designer has been 10 years in the business. They have lots of, credibility. They have lots of projects under the belt, and they have their own client who is now going to build a 10,000 square foot house. And they say, I want you to design this house for me and oversee and manage the design build. If that designer has never done it before, what are the things, Michelle, that you would say, okay, you don't even know this is what you don't know yet. Please find this out, do this. Are there things like that? Like, do you know what I'm asking you? Okay.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I wouldn't want someone to get into it without knowing how to charge for it.
Okay, good point.
Well, because, once in a while we will hear of a designer or a design firm think, well, I'm going to do the construction part of it for a really low fee because I hope to just sell them some furniture on the back end or whatever. And that's a way you can get yourself in like really big trouble, like financially, because these jobs take hundreds, if not thousands of hours. So I think you got to make sure you're educated, like what the typical flat fees are or hourly fees. Again, what the expected time frame of these are. It's again, on average, we're easily a good 2 years, if not 3 years on these projects. So it is, and actually the seminar that I'm giving at High Point, and I've given it in Manhattan, I've given it in Naples, Florida. I've done it like 3 or 4 times over the years. And I have interior designers that come up to me and say, we're just so thankful because I'm pretty transparent about fees and how to structure your contract. So it's like real kind of meat and potatoes information that sometimes designers just aren't willing to share. But so anyway, I would say that you got to kind of learn how to charge for this field and even learn how architects are charging their fees for new construction. And not that it needs to be similar, but you have to have an understanding of that. And then really skill sets, you have to have someone, whether it's yourself or on your team, that's very well versed in AutoCAD drafting. We do all of our floor plans, lighting plans, elevations, whether it's of cabinetry or millwork design in AutoCAD. We're actually looking to introduce Revit into our firm, another software program which we haven't used before. So, and then again, I do feel we have to know a lot about electrical issues, a lot about plumbing, some structural issues. Our designers are educated on windows and doors as far as codes.
So if a designer isn't really that knowledgeable in these areas, Michelle, are there CEUs or are there things like that a designer can avail him or herself of to get this information? Or is it really just come from being on the boots on the ground and learning trial by error?
Well, I think it's a combination of both. There's definitely CEUs. It's funny, I'm obviously licensed and in the midst of getting my CEUs for my renewal period right now. So there's definitely CEUs. We took our entire design team to the International Builder Show and the Kitchen and Bath Show last month in Orlando. And obviously there's trade booths there set up of all these different components, again, windows, doors, roofing, and more of the interior things, again, countertops and cabinets and faucets and so forth. So, but there's, even if it's not a CEU, there's great seminars on these issues. You could probably set up appointments with local sales reps. I mean, our sales reps still educate us all the time on different products that are coming out or different code issues that are now impacting the industry. And of course, in Florida, the new construction home have heavy hurricane ratings and different codes that we have to be familiar with. And again, the architects do a lot of this, but we are involved with our clients on a lot of this decision making too. So some of those exterior products, if you will, we kind of collaborate with the architect. But there's certainly ways to self-educate, if you will. And of course, in the day of YouTube and Google, I mean, there's almost a YouTube video on just about anything.
I know, right?
So if it's something you feel you need to brush up on or whatever, but it's kind of the you do have to know a lot about the structure, and
right.
It's not just about does this sofa work or is
right.
this paint color going to work. So.
Yes, and I think that, and I don't know, I was about to say I think that there's a misnotion out there, but the truth is I don't know. I just feel like there are some times that we think we want something. We think that, as an interior designer, I want to do a full-on, design, construction, luxury build. But the reality is to really sit and think about what that is. That, like you said, there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars on the line with the decisions that you suggest and the decisions that you make. And it's a whole nother, it's not a whole nother field, but it's almost like if somebody were a general practitioner doctor and then somebody were a brain surgeon. They're both doctors, right. But the other one has to know so much more detail that the consequences of that knowledge and that detail are very weighty. You just don't recommend the wrong electrical roughing or the wrong plumbing roughing or the wrong whatever and then, fix it when the house is built and you found out that the designer did it wrong, right?
No, yeah. Most of it, you need to be on your game for sure. And it's funny you just bring up brain surgery because, sometimes we're always like, if we're in a stressful situation or something's not going right, I'm always like, okay, this isn't brain
right.
surgery. We're not curing cancer. We're gonna, we'll figure this out. But you are right.
There's a level of it, though, that is that important to that homeowner.
It is because, we're kind of selling ourselves at the beginning of the project that we are going to prevent them from making costly errors, and we are going to try to take away some of their headaches.
Mm-hmm.
Building a home, we see it, with married couples that it's stressful to them. They can get into some arguments over decisions. I mean, we've had a few along the way gotten a divorce. I mean, that's been over 2 decades or whatever. But we really try hard to kind of take away some of those headaches. And typically, especially once we establish a good rapport with our client, which is usually near the beginning, they really do come to trust us. They value our opinion. And in most cases, they're kind of willing to let go of it and say, if you guys feel good about this decision, we're going to trust you. And certainly the clients that we've done multiple projects for are very much in that vein.
Right.
Like if you guys like it, we love it. And so it does get easy. But that is one of the things we try to sell is not only the design, but just the service behind it. And, we know the processes, we know the timelines, we know what steps go, first, second, third, fourth along the way. And we're always anticipating those. So, again, we absolutely love it. And I really can't imagine really doing anything else. And of course, we're still trying to grow it. We're doing a lot of more work in other states. And, we'd love to get into, whether it's in the Caribbean or Europe, we'd like to even be doing some things more on an international level.
Fun.
So it's not, I would highly encourage it to anyone, but, on one hand, maybe it sounds glamorous or again, you just really have to be on top of it. And you do have to know the financial aspect of it because when you start out a project, some number may look really good, but 36 months down the road, if you divide that by all of your time,
Wait, I was working for 5 cents an hour. Awesome.
Exactly. And that can happen for sure. So, and you also have to kind of establish boundaries. We have a contract, and gosh, I think it's, typically like 10 to 12 pages, but it really sets out what our scope of services are step by step. It lists how many hours that we'll work on, like what we call the exterior finishes, whether it's, the pool deck or a roof color or the exterior paint color, but we have like a limit of hours that we'll spend on the exterior. And we also have a list of exclusions, that these are what the architect does, and we do not do that now. And then there'll be a list of things we collaborate with the architect, but we really try to set forth in detail what we do. And then, you have to set up those boundaries that you're staying within your scope, because we do, get to become friendly with our clients. They become friends of ours. And, we've even been asked to help plan a wedding, or, it just branches into, we find it branches into other lifestyle things.
It's crazy, isn't it? Do you know Kimberly Selden, Michelle?
I do.
Yes, she's been on the show a couple of times. Her Business of Design sponsors the podcast, and we recently had a conversation just along those lines about how the more you know the client, and of course there's a level of friendship mixed in with all of this, then they start to ask you to give opinions and make selections for things that are not part of the scope. And she really cautions every designer to stand their ground and send an invoice for it, or, not engage in it or whatever. Yeah. Just like you said, you have to. And she also says the exact same thing, that the agreement that starts the relationship needs to be ridiculously clear so that all parties understand. And I love that you started with your first advice to somebody who thinks that they might be interested in this field is to truly first understand how to price the project. Not, I was so focused on how to be able to be prepared to execute the project, which of course I can see from all of the detail that you do in conjunction with it is critical. But I love that your first sentence is first know how to price it.
Yeah, it is. And you start speaking with others in the industry. You might attend a workshop, and you start figuring out, but you're also keeping track of your time during that project so that when you're bidding out the next one,
you're learning, right?
Yeah, you're like, okay, this is also 10,000 square feet. This is how many hours it took us on that project. And we document all of our jobs that way, obviously, now. So we know how many hours we're spending. We pretty much know what a client's going to spend on the furniture phase as well, because that becomes pretty historically consistent, really, again, based on square footage. And we're able to educate the client on that up front, too. So we're able to set...
Right, so they don't run out of money by the time you get to that, right?
Exactly. And you just have to be realistic. And I think they really value that we even know, they respect that we can really give them like a real number, like 2 years before they're even going to do it. And they do have to feel good about it.
Yes. So, yeah. I often, with window treatment, certainly not in projects that are organized to this level, but just more or less when I run into homeowners that have done their own addition or they've done their own renovation and now they're calling us for direct consultation for window treatments, and it never fails. They're like at the end of the rope, the end of the budget, and they're like, window treatments cost how much? And you're like, yeah, you didn't leave enough left over, did you?
Oh, I know. On our homes, just the window treatments, are definitely six figures.
I have contracts. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I have an architect in Long Island. She's an architect / interior designer. She's literally skilled on both ends, and she does only ground up projects. She literally designs the home and the exterior, the landscaping, the interior architecture, all the millwork, all the bath, everything. And then part of the project, she does the interior design finishes as well. And we've been so lucky to be her window treatment person for more than 25 years. And they are six-figure projects for us. And she doesn't even purchase the fabric through me. It's six figures on labor.
Wow.
on
No, I get
fabrication.
it.
Yeah. So I know those projects, and I watch her and the skill set that she has and what goes into that. And it does, one project begets another. Like you said, once you in the age of marketing and internet, all of that is valuable, but the biggest return comes from the completed home that you've put out there into the world and the happy homeowners. And then, their circle of friends is that circle. Let's be serious. So, and of course, the other trades that work on it might recommend you too. So I love all of that information in there, Michelle. And I would just love to just pick apart a little bit more in that the trajectory. So you are in business at 10-year point. You've probably had a few projects that were whole ground up projects. And then you start to shift your focus into wanting to attract more of that client and do more of that project. So my question is, along the way, whether it was from the first year or was it from the sixth year or the whatever, you were, here's how I almost visualize it. You've got your toe in the water. You've got a project here, and it maybe you're running regular one-off rooms and things, but you've got one big project that you're executing, and you start to say, I like this. I like this. I think this is good. I feel like this is where my wheelhouse is. I feel like this is where I want to move my business. Did you do other things in parallel with building your expertise in that knowledge? Because I'm really trying to settle in on, I know the experience of a designer being on a project and the GC and or the architect talking down to them. So I'm trying to settle in on the experience on how a designer who aspires to do this really places him or herself in the education track. Like you said, it's the seminars, it's the different things. But do you know what I'm really, so that they really can fully go, I got this?
Well, I do. I mean, I think it's just being proactive and knowing where you might be deficient. And,
Okay.
Is there a class? Is there an online?
Can you really learn it in the classes and in the CEUs? I guess that's what I'm wondering.
I really think you can. I think now, I don't think you walk in on one Saturday
No.
and, you learn it all, but it's that, just the combination of that in adding experience and sitting down and talking with an architect, about what goes into the project with them. I mean, one of the best things I did, this was, 6 or 7 years ago, a client that I had done at least a dozen projects for said, I'm going to build this great house. And I really want you to oversee the whole project. I want you to help me pick the architect, the landscape architect. I want you to bid it out with the builders. He was going to be traveling a lot. And he said, I just kind of want you to oversee it all. And again, that was somewhat recently ago, 5 or 6 years ago, but it really gave me an appreciation of what the builder had to deal with every day and what the architect had to deal with every day. So I started looking at the project through their eyes and not just as a team member or just the interior designer. And now, again, it's hard to just go out and say, hey, client, give me that responsibility or whatever. But I'll tell you, I learned so much from it, and I think we've become a better interior design firm because of it. And I've tried to instill that in our designers. And we're even now at this crossroads where every client we have, we sit down at the end, and they're so appreciative. And kind of long story short, we're even starting to look at, do we even want to get more into some construction management services? Because they feel that we're super loyal, we're super dedicated, we're very invested in their project, whether it's emotionally, financially, we're just invested. Like we're there for the long haul. So, so we're even bouncing around, is that an added value service that we want to start offering? And I'm not sure if we will, but gosh, when you try to say what does it take, I think it is just a combination of these different experiences. I think it's being very curious, like when you're out at a job site and they're installing the tile or the marble, it's really asking the subcontractors questions. really understanding what they're doing. It's kind of just, I really feel like in design and probably with any career, you're kind of like this lifelong student and just being really curious and asking questions and kind of empathizing with the other person. You know, you definitely have to just set your ego at the door. I mean, maybe we know a few things, maybe we don't, but at the end of the day, how are we going to make this $5 million house or whatever $1 million house incredible? How is this going to, you know, are the owners just going to be so excited with it? And are we going to improve their life in some way or whatever? And I think it's just that curiosity and that wanting to learn and wanting to get better and never accepting just the status quo. Well, I've done it this way for X amount of years, so I'm not going to look at bettering myself in AutoCAD or whatever it is. You know, I think you just always have to get better. And as you know, in today's world, technology is just changing so fast too. You know, it's also learning how technology might help you better your business. So even in new construction, you know, we're looking at some different software right now, like for project management or task management, or again, even like our 3-dimensional renderings, where how can we make the client experience better, basically.
Nice.
And you know, for these luxury homes, you're usually dealing with, you know, I don't know, VIP clients, if you will, and they've built a large, you know, multi-million-dollar company, or we have a lot of clients that just have sold their companies for, you know, buku bucks, or they're a professional athlete, and, you know, they're kind of used to a high level of service and kind of feeling important. So even though kind of all our clients are like that, we're always trying to make them feel like they're our only client, which they're not. You know, we usually
it's all about you.
Yeah, so I think it's just it's probably not too different from any industry, but just really how, you know, at the end of the day, how can you be of service? How can you serve that client? How can you just be bettering yourself in your industry, and that curiosity? And
I like that. I you know, it's funny because I was going to wrap you right back to that, and you just came to it again with the curiosity, because that, to me, you said in there, was a very actionable thing that I could see a designer who aspires to this as an actionable thing that they could do to get them along the path. And what you said was, when you're on the job site, ask the trades, ask the tile man about his process and what he needed to know from somebody in order to execute what he's doing, or ask the plumber how you decide where the roughing goes, or whatever the darn questions are. But the point is, I could visualize that. I could visualize that whether I am 25 years old and just starting my career, or I'm 40 years old and I've had a 15-year, 30, 20-year career, but I want to transition. It's like you said, the CEUs, the classes, the seminars, but literally on the project where you're just doing the renovation of the bathroom, get involved and ask the GC the things he needed to know, and the plumber the things he needed to know in order to make it a great project. I like that. I like that a lot, Michelle.
Yeah, no, I think it's critical. And, you know, why did they make that decision, or why did they do that? Or you learn so much.
You just learn.
I've never been to plumbing school, or I've never taken a tile setting class, but I know a lot of the stuff that they have to know because we have observed. And and I think, again, I think this is with anything, but if you truly enjoy it and you're passionate about it, like you truly want to know the answers.
Right,
you know
right. You're interested to begin with. Yeah. It's not just homework.
It is. Yes. It is. And then whatever little tidbit you glean from that, you'll use.
Exactly.
You know? So, you know,
I just love the actionable part about it, that somebody who is maybe at the point where they have no opportunity yet for that big project, but what I kept looking for was how to prepare to be ready for that opportunity. And in addition to the classes and so forth, that is so clear to me that no matter what level project you're doing, you're interacting with, at minimum, one other tradesperson. Ask them about their trade. Ask them what they need to know in order to do a good project. Or like you said, why did they decide to do a certain thing a certain way? Very
Yep.
good. Very exciting. And then the other question I had, you mentioned that as a team, in order to do these high level projects and detailed projects, that you have to have very good AutoCAD skills and, people in your firm that do this. And I don't know, I'm sure probably the designers all know the answer to this, but I'm curious. If you're a smaller firm that hasn't transitioned to these sorts of projects yet, in the beginning, before you have generated enough income to justify a full-time expert AutoCAD person, is that a service that as a designer you can hire out to somebody, or would you, even if you can, would you say that's not how you want to run one of these projects? Like, what's the deal with that?
Yep, that's a great question. Yes, you definitely can hire it out. You don't have to have like employees that do it. So you could hire an independent contractor that does it like as a freelance. You could hire a firm that just does drafting. There's firms that just do drafting. We at Studio M, we do all of ours in-house. And certainly in the beginning, I did not, though. I did contract it out.
Okay, so it's possible to...
It definitely is.
Okay. Probably the quality goes up when you're in-house because you can make changes and revisions without it being a big to-do. But for somebody starting out, it's a viable way to put their toe in the water in this industry.
For sure. And there's great people that do it. And again, you could probably even get a good freelancer that still would come to your office, and just make it very easy. But ultimately, I mean, again, we find we like it in-house because we do, it's just we do it every day.
You're more nimble. You can,
yes. You can but then you're also able to set up how you do the style of your drawings a little more. We have AutoCAD standards, if you will, that we've set up, whether it's how we lay out our drawings, the font we use, the line weights we use, just different title blocks. But you can certainly do it either way. And I think there's designers that have been in the business for a very long time that still sub it out, to a freelance or independent contractor. So I really don't think there's a right or a wrong.
Right. I can understand the desire to aspire to have it in-house, but I'm glad to know that if somebody is just, testing the waters, you don't have to make that higher. Okay, so that's good. I like that.
Well, and it's not even just the hire, but then the commitment to the cost of the software and even the computers or the plotter,
Okay, there's a lot that I didn't realize. Okay, right.
Yeah, it can be expensive. So it's definitely a way when you're starting out. I probably would say get a good independent contractor that either charges by the project or, some hourly fee that you feel fits into your project.
Okay. Good. And then the other thing that you said that I just wanted to circle back to was that when we talked about how you were looking to expand your projects to Europe and the Caribbean and other international locations, and, I said, oh, that's fun. And then you said, yeah, not all fun. And so I just want to talk about that for a second, too, because you're right. In order to execute a project that is, 500 miles or 5,000 miles away from you, the whole level of organization and detail just has to ramp up even so much higher than what it is to begin with, because you just can't go back and check a measurement. You can't just go back and ask the contractor. So, you're talking about that's where your firm is heading now a little bit, and you're moving in that direction. Are you taking certain steps to ensure that process, or you just know at this point, 26 years in business and 16 years or 15 years at this level of luxury, high-end new builds, that you're ready, you have it locked down, that you're able to...
Yeah, well, good question. Yes, I feel we do have the procedures. We know that those initial consultations are, typically if we start a project out of state, we'll spend like 2 days. We try to spend 2 days there and have meetings set up with the architect, the builder, any of the important players, the clients. And then we do have checkpoints. Usually our contracts will say how many site visits are in that particular contract. And sometimes we're able to negotiate a monthly site visit, and then you kind of keep a list of, like you're saying, any important measurements or just anything that needs your personal attention. Also, we've had really good partnerships or relationships with the on-site builder that they're happy to videotape something for us, or we'll do a Skype call, or they'll send us some really good photographs. And really, I mean, honestly, it's funny, we talk about it in our firm. A lot of times the projects that we're doing 2 minutes away, whether if it's 2 minutes away or if it's, like you're saying, 500 or 2,000 miles away, we're starting to treat them the same way.
That's smart, right?
Well, and I think some of it is just with technology and ways you can communicate, but we kind of do have our checklists and our processes. And you're right. You can't say, oh, I forgot to do that, so I'm going to just buzz around the corner and do it. You don't have that luxury.
Yikes.
But hopefully, even if it's a local project, you're getting away from that too.
Right. You don't want to run in circles no matter where you are.
Exactly. So I do feel we're getting better and better at it. And you're always trying to streamline it and, again, make sure the designers understand timelines and boundaries. But so far, again, knock on wood, they've gone very smoothly.
Yes. Well, you have a great team there. I know that, you have a business strategist, you have a director of operations, you have a director of design, you have a senior designer, Kylie, my buddy out there. Hi, Kylie.
Yeah.
You have an office manager, you have a designer, you have a junior designer, and you have a marketing coordinator. So you really are well equipped at this point. And the only one that I know is Kylie. And of course, I don't even know her. We're just, Instagram and Twitter friends, but I adore her. But just looking at the team on the website, they just look capable. And I know that's ridiculous to say, but you just really do present as, we have this locked down. Like, we can handle this for you.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, I appreciate that. I mean, we really do put a lot of time into hiring. That's one thing that I've learned, and we're still looking to grow a lot. And I've actually been very conservative in our growth. I mean, I think it's taken forever to get to where we are, but because I have been very conservative and methodical, and I don't like debt. And so it's, we just add when we can, and we're conservative. But I think hiring for any firm is so important. I mean, you really need to go out and get the best people. You really need to get people with the skill sets that I personally don't have, or that are better in certain areas than I am.
Yes.
So we really spend a lot of time in our hiring process. And when we get it kind of whittled down to our top 2 or 3 candidates for a position, we go to dinner. And if they're married or have a significant other, we want that person to go to dinner with us. So our team is very much, we try to cultivate kind of a family atmosphere. We're very close. We socialize together. And to bring someone in when you're hiring, you have to make sure they're part of that chemistry. And,
right.
It's not going to rock the boat. So I would encourage anyone that is looking to hiring, you can't just get a warm body. Like, you need the talent. You need someone that is just experienced.
Yes.
And it's never for sure or for certainty that it's going to work out. But, over the years, we've had a few strikeouts, if you will, but usually it's if we've done it too quickly or just felt, okay, we need someone now and they look okay.
Isn't that true that you can always look back and look at where you messed that up? I have that same experience at WindowWorks, because I'm the one in charge of hiring at WindowWorks too. And
right.
Yeah, the couple of times it's just like, well, you know what? But it's something as the owner of your business that you have to, you're like, as you said, you have to take good time and take care to get the right person and fight the feeling of, with your back against the wall, that I need the person right away. Get going. You know what I mean? So good advice on that, Michelle. I like that. But I do. I love your whole website. I love the way the team presents. I think that it's really very fabulous. And before we wrap up, let's talk a few minutes about you are on the board of directors for High Point Market. And my first thought is, what does that mean? Like, what are your responsibilities as a director, as a member of the board of directors? And how does that work? And how do you have time for it? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, well, thank you. I believe this is my third year I'm doing it. But basically, High Point Market Authority is the nonprofit part that kind of puts on High Point Market, if you will. Like they're the marketers, the planners, the organizers. They handle the transportation and so forth. But basically, I want to say there's maybe 15 to 18 folks on the board, and they have one slot for an interior designer. And 3 years ago, for whatever reason, actually I was doing style spotting at the time, and they had an opening in the interior design position and asked if I would do it. And, basically we just help, I don't know, set policies or procedures or new ideas for High Point Market. I believe truly that it's one of the top international furniture markets in the world, and I really believe it's the best in the United States by far. And the reason I say that is High Point, it's in North Carolina, obviously, which is where most American-made furniture has been made, either now or historically. So there's just this deep historical roots, tradition, if you will, of the furniture industry. And I think there's just this whole Southern hospitality there and that furniture tradition that you just don't find at other markets. So really we're kind of tasked with how do we even still make it better? Now there's competing markets out there in other states and cities. So how do we remain at the forefront, and what can we bring differently, if you will?
Okay. So you're sort of like the think tank for it.
A little bit, but again, there's, a lot of the board, there's quite a few, there's half a dozen at least CEOs of furniture companies. There's a furniture designer. There's a couple people that hold position that own the buildings at High Point. I mean, there's like 12 million square feet there, but there's different building, owners own different buildings. So there's just like the mayor of High Point's on the board, so there's some political people. So there's people with all sorts of different jobs and backgrounds, and we're just trying to make High Point Market the best it can be. And I'm actually really excited about some of the initiatives that are happening now. And again, I've been going for a long time, but I really have learned the behind the scenes and what goes into it. And even, they get funding from the state of North Carolina and what goes into that to obtain the funding and continue the funding. So, the marketing efforts, social media now is in the pie. It's just, we just introduced an app that is like a wayfinding map for market. So if you're at one showroom and you want to go to a different showroom, it may be, a mile down the road, but it'll literally tell you how to get there. So it's
that's
almost
fun. Is that new for spring 2017?
They introduced it, I think we rolled it out spring of 2016, but it wasn't all the buildings. And then in October, they even had more buildings on it. And then I think this spring, there's even more showrooms on it. So it keeps increasing.
That's nice. That would, I think, that's such a simple little thing, but it would be helpful.
But it was a huge undertaking and pretty costly. But it's almost, again, you just pull your iPhone out and it's almost like, on maps on your iPhone or whatever, you have this app and you just plug in. So it's kind of doing those kind of initiatives. But I've learned so much about the furnishing industry, a little bit about, the North Carolina state legislature. So it's kind of just opened my eyes a lot to the behind the scenes. And again, but I sincerely respect what the Market Authority does. And I want to help it as much as I can, from my little level, from my interior designer level, if you will.
Yeah.
So, but I've also just got to meet a lot of neat people that I probably didn't have the opportunities to meet just being a business owner or whatever. So it's kind of upped the game a little bit, and I've really enjoyed it. So.
Well, it reminds me what you said earlier when you were talking about the design industry, and you said you make sure you have a passion for it. I can hear your passion for High Point Market and wanting it to be, even better than it ever has been, and always looking for new things. It's clear that you are involved in it. I have two questions related to it. The first is, why? So you said you've been on the board for 3 years. Is there a time limit, or is it just when you've decided, Uncle, this is too much for me? I mean, how does that work? And the second is, out of 15 positions and multiple CEOs of furniture companies, how come only one designer?
Well, there you go. I don't know the answer to the second one. I know that they just have. I don't know if it's tradition or if that's in their bylaws. I guess I've never asked, like, why only one designer? But it's funny that you say that, because when I used to go to market 10 years ago or 20 years ago, interior designers were kind of the little peons. And the big,
absolutely. Yes.
The big brick and mortar retailers were the big guns.
Yes.
It's honestly reversed.
Yes.
Now. Yeah.
High Point has evolved. I have to tell you, I've said it on the show before. I've only been there once. It was in the 80s. So honestly, half the people listening probably weren't even born then. But the thing about it is that just from an outside view looking in, see, I don't specify furniture and I don't do full service interior design. So at this point, I would be highly interested and curious because of all the things I've learned in the last year on the podcast. But beyond that, it's not, I'm not going to, well, of course, all the fabrics, but whatever. The point is that it's not been a necessity for me to further my business along, right? Yeah. But I just, as an observer, in just the things that you can't help but see that come across your desk, whether it's an email or it's an ad in one of the different shelter magazines, or it's whatever it is, you can just see the evolution of the designer and the influence that the designer has on High Point. It is remarkable, and I think it's amazing, and I think it's fabulous, and that's why I'm thinking they need another designer on that board.
Well, it is funny because it just, now the furnishing manufacturers really want the interior designer's business. Like it's in their proactive like marketing plans, and it just didn't used to be that way. So I think business is just changing. Again, the brick and mortar stores, there's not as many of them. I think the internet and online buying has changed it, and interior designers just offer that service. We're not just trying to sell a sofa. So, but it is interesting how it changed. And in your question, just in regards to the term limits, I know they are 2-year terms, and they asked me to, do another term. And I don't know if there's ultimately a term limit. I'm not sure. So we will see. And as long as I can, somehow add a little bit of value and be of service, I have been enjoying it.
That's nice. That's awesome. I love it. Michelle, you are a powerhouse, I have to say. And I feel like we've really only touched the surface of all the different skills and topics that you could really share with your colleagues. But I really want to encourage your colleagues listening, if they're not familiar with you, to go to your website and to see the different things that you're doing and to learn more about you, because you are a leader, you are an influencer in our industry. It's clear to me, and I think that your passion for what you're doing is inspiring, and I'm just really thrilled to meet you. And before you go, tell us, it's studiom.com. Give me the website, because I know there's a couple of different Michelle Wiebes out there, so we have to really make sure. There's a teacher out there that has high profile presence on the internet, and there's an artist that has a high profile. So are you usually trying to use Michelle Jennings Wiebe now? Is that to differentiate?
I have 12 names. No, it's very confusing. But our website is interiors.studiom.com.
Okay.
The firm name is Studio M. You will find me under Michelle Wiebe, and it's Wiebe. But for the first 10 years, my business was Michelle Jennings Design Studio.
Okay.
So I have, in some respects, kept Michelle Jennings Wiebe just because a lot of people still know me as Michelle Jennings.
Okay.
So it kind of gets confusing. So you will see me listed as Michelle Jennings Wiebe or Michelle Wiebe. Unfortunately, it hasn't all been consolidated in one compact little.
Yes. Well, I think that for the biggest thing is that it's funny is there legit is a Michelle Wiebe artist that is not you. And she's got a big web presence out there. And then on YouTube, yes. If you just Google Michelle Wiebe, you of course come up as Studio M Designs, but then it just this michellewiebe.com, and I was like, oh, what's that website? And that's not her. That's a painter. And at first I wasn't even sure if it was you and that you were a painter, but then I kept going through and I finally found a picture of that Michelle Wiebe, and I was like, oh, that's not her.
That's not matching.
So anyway, I had a really great time talking with you today, and I appreciate your being a good sport with me, really getting prickly and keep asking almost the same question over and over again until I just sort of do that until I really feel like I understand it. Yeah. So, but you really did get me there, and I have a little education now on the multitude of layers that go into the level of design that you're doing, and I can see that it's very high pressured, a lot of details, but that you guys are have it locked down and you're executing it with that great team of yours. Michelle, thank you.
No, thank you, LuAnn. I've really enjoyed getting to speak with you, and I'd love, hopefully we'll get to meet in real.
Right. That'd be great.
That would be fun, and I'd love to chat with you again. It's definitely been fun. So
thank you.
And congrats on your wonderful podcast, and I wish you continued success on that. It's wonderful. So
thank you, Michelle. After a revisit on this episode, I'm still struck by how much of an impact it has, right? Michelle is that kind of business owner who creates success for herself wherever she goes and whatever she decides to do. And this doesn't happen by accident. The biggest takeaway for me from this episode is the emphasis on education. As Michelle points out, designers need to be lifelong learners. That's you. And if you're trying to break into new construction, knowledge matters even more. And while the CEUs can give you plenty of education, you also need to seek that knowledge directly from those who know. As a designer, this means looking for work in firms that specialize in this. You'll gain experience and valuable knowledge that can lead to this career in new construction. And if you're more experienced but looking to break into construction, I love Michelle's suggestion of relying on trade partners. Never be afraid to ask questions and gain knowledge. Every project is an opportunity to walk away with a new bit of expertise. Okay. Michelle pointed out that you can't fake it with new construction. There's no way for you to know everything and every aspect of it, right? But if you want to compete in this industry at that level, you have to bring expertise to the table. That means you need to know a lot. You need to understand electricity, plumbing, structural pieces that go into play. You have to be ultra skilled, and you have to be able to back up your skills with knowledge. Now, I don't want to breeze by the fact that Michelle said one of the most important things you need to know is how to charge. In fact, it's the very first thing she brought up when I asked, what do you need to know before breaking into new construction? So when you're working on large-scale projects, it becomes even more imperative to make sure that you understand the scope of everything involved so that you can accurately estimate the time, effort, and cost that go into it. You don't want to get yourself into a bad situation, by these are large projects. You price those wrong. That's not just your average garden variety mistake, right? Okay. Over time, it becomes second nature. Michelle understands how to price her projects because she's done it so many times and she has lived and learned. Okay. So I have to say, many, many paths to doing it. Do not forget that we have Design for Construction 101 and 201 as part of LuAnn University. We'll be opening up again in the fall. I think pre-registration is going to be opening September 15th, I want to call it. So keep on the lookout for those emails and those announcements about that. But that is a very, very, very good first step if you are interested in getting into this career, this lane of your own career, right? All righty. Well, high five to you, Michelle, my friend. I just admire you so much and am so thrilled for what you have created in your life. Truly admirable. It is remarkable to see what you've done and to have had the experience of being there in person with you and to really just look on what you have done. It's just amazing. High five. And thank you for joining me today. I always appreciate that you show up and listen. And please share with us in the LuAnn Nigara Facebook group or on the Instagram post on what you might have learned in today's episode. It's always fun to know what you take away. Thanks again. Decide to be excellent. Thank you for joining me today. This podcast is a production of LuAnn Nigara, Inc. If you'd like to know more about me, my books, or LuAnn University, go to luannnigara.com. And if you want to learn more about exciting windows where you can get education and resources to build a better window treatment business, go to excitingwindows.biz. Have an excellent day.